Hello, 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 and welcome back. It's been a while, or at least it feels like a while, with the videos and the news I've had to deal with and post between last week's video and this one, but here we are yet again for another Encyclopedia Eorzea reading stream. As always, if you enjoy the content, feel free to subscribe and ring the bell, helps the channel a lot, as well as liking the video. And hopefully I can see some comments down there that I can interact with. I'd love to talk with people more about Eorzea and all of its various secrets and niches. But for now, we're going to get into it. We are currently at Before the Fall, which, if I recall correctly, is the 2.55 patch of A Realm Reborn, just before Heavensward. So hopefully, we'll be there soon. Before the Fall. With the emergence of a new emperor in Garlemald, the threat of an imperial invasion once again loomed over Eorzea. Meanwhile, revelations of conspiracy sowed strife among Uldah's ruling class, and the Sultanate's precarious peace hung in the balance. The Rising Chorus. After assisting the Crystal Braves with an investigation into a black marketeer suspected of supplying Uldan refugees with weapons, the Warrior of Light was once more summoned to meet with an Ishgardian envoy. According to Lucia, first commander of the Temple Knights, the astrologers of the Observatorium had sounded the alarm, for the Dragon Star had burned with an intensity not seen in 15 summers, when the Dravanians routed the Imperial fleet in the Battle of Silver-Tier Skies. The brightening of the Dragon Star was said to accompany the roar of a great worm, and the astrologers interpreted this as a portent of Midgard-Sormer's imminent resurrection. The Knights of Ishgard were in no position to dispatch forces to the Keeper of the Lake at the time, and so Sir Aymeric bade the Warrior of Light investigate the site on their behalf and ascertain the veracity of the astrologers' claims. Atop the wreckage of the Agrius, the brave hero confirmed Ishgard's worst fears had come to pass when he confronted the fallen guardian of Silver-Tier Falls, seemingly risen from the dead. With no choice but to fight, the adventurer engaged the Worm Lord in battle, at last laying him to rest forever. However, as he turned to leave, the voice of the unbowed Midgard-Sormer rung out once more, inviting the Warrior of Light to plead his case. Yet his words fell on deaf ears, and the Worm Lord flatly stated that his children now sang of Ishgard's imminent destruction. Midgard-Sormer then made ready to end the adventurer's life, only to hesitate when Hydaelyn herself intervened and marked him as one of her chosen. Midgard-Sormer then relented, but not before somehow stripping the Warrior of Light of the Mother Crystal's blessing, revealing that an ancient covenant made with Hydaelyn in a time before time had bound him to the adventurer. The essence of the Worm Lord coalesced into a tiny vessel, through which he would watch, listen, and weigh the worth of Hydaelyn's chosen in the desperate days ahead. Lucia greeted the Warrior of Light upon his return, and, unaware of his new burden, she thanked him for besting Midgard-Sormer and for bringing confirmation of the impending Dravanian attack. Ishgard had weathered countless assaults over centuries, and this would be no different, or so she and many others believed. During the Battle of Silver-Tier Skies, both Midgard-Sormer and the Agrius fell to the earth, and their tangled remnants, known as the Keeper of the Lake, stand as a memorial to that day. A ruined airship, and the charred corpse of the Worm Lord who brought it low, forever devoid of life. Life for death. So long as the Oseans were allowed to act with impunity, the Scions of the Seventh Dawn would be powerless to prevent others from learning the secrets of summoning. Simply striking down the Paragons would not suffice, as with the aid of their crystals of darkness, they could discard their physical forms and withdraw to the shore of the ethereal sea, thereby escaping death. Therefore, in order to more effectively combat the primal menace, the organization had secretly begun research into developing a means to permanently dispatch these so-called immortal beings. One ally in this endeavor was Moan Brita, an accomplished Charlayan scholar and an authority on aetherite technologies. Before coming to Eorzea, she had been studying white orosite, a material she believed could be used to capture an Osean soul. A trapped soul could then be obliterated with a concentrated burst or blade of purest aether. Though this method would require a staggering amount of aether to execute, the scholar had devised an ingenious solution. etheric siphons, which could be used to extract the required energy from corrupted crystals found across Eorzea, enabling one to call upon the necessary energies at a moment's notice. Unfortunately, while field testing one such device, Moan Brita and the Warrior of Light were approached by an Osean who introduced himself as Nabrialis. Upon sensing that the adventurer was no longer possessed of Heidelin's blessing, however, the Paragon teleported away, seemingly intent on taking advantage of the Scion's vulnerability to steal Tupsimati, a legendary staff once wielded by Archon Louisoix himself. The pair gave chase and arrived back at the Rising Stones to find Nabrialis already in the Solar with Minfilia, the antecedent clutching the shards of the broken Tupsimati. With dismissive contempt, the Osean revealed his plans to use the power yet hidden within the staff to bring about a new rejoining. He then tore open a dimensional rift through which he escaped with both Minfilia and the relic she held, and the Warrior of Light followed. In that otherworldly void, the adventurer defeated his Osean foe and rescued Minfilia, returning all three to the Rising Stones. There, before the weakened Osean could flee into the void, Minfilia succeeded in trapping his soul within the chunk of white orsite. But try as he might, the Warrior of Light was unable to summon enough aether to truly destroy the fiend. As she witnessed light struggle to triumph over dark, Moan Brita finally came to understand her mentor Louisoix's dedication to his duty. The wounded scholar then expended her own life energy in a brilliant burst of aether, allowing the Warrior of Light's glowing blade to at last pierce Nabrialis' essence. The Osean was defeated, never to return, but in the process, the Scions were deprived of a precious ally and dear friend. The Steps of Faith. The Scions of the Seventh Dawn had but a moment to mourn their loss before grave tidings from Ishgard commanded their full attention. The Dravanian horde had at last begun its assault. Sir Aymeric himself had sallied forth with a contingent of temple knights and several companies of the noble house's finest, but though they briefly forced their foes into retreat, the Ishgardians had suffered grievous losses. Once more, Lucia came unto the Rising Stones, this time to seek the aid of the Crystal Braves and the Grand Companies in bolstering her city's defenses. However, the great powers of Eorzea had not forgotten how Ishgard refused to come to their aid at the Battle of Cartno. While they had no objections to the Crystal Braves' intervention, the Alliance was unwilling to pledge more than a token force to aid in Ishgard's defense. Citing local concerns more deserving of their resources, the leaders refused to provide meaningful assistance and suggested instead that the Scions make every effort to assemble a contingent of elite adventurers, a volunteer force, under the leadership of the Warrior of Light. Adventurers enlisted in the Grand Companies were granted leave to participate, but they would not be obligated to do so. The Scions rallied what support they could and came to the aid of Ishgard, and for a time their combined forces managed to hold the line. Yet their efforts were undermined through subterfuge when agents loyal to the Lady Iceheart within the Temple Knights helped her to dispel the outermost layer of Daphanin's collar, a series of arcane wards that protected the Steps of Faith, the sole means of approaching the city. Danafin's collar. The mighty dragon Vishop seized upon this opportunity to lead an army of his lesser kin to the bridge, in an attempt to destroy the exposed foundations of the remaining wards. Marshalling his forces, the Warrior of Light took up position on the Steps of Faith alongside the Temple Knights, and in a pitched battle that saw many casualties and nearly led to the destruction of the city, Vishop was brought low in a hail of dragon killer bolts. Upon his death, the defenders raised their voices in triumph, for by it, the siege of Ishgard had been ended. The Bloody Banquet. To commemorate Ishgard's victory over the Dravanian horde, a feast was held in Ul'dah, with the leaders of every nation of the Eorzean Alliance in attendance. Regardless of the fact that the other city-states had refused to pledge considerable aid, all recognized the importance of strengthening ties with their reclusive nation and paving the way for its return to the Alliance as a full-fledged member. The Scions of the Seventh Dawn were also there that day, having been recognized for their part in lifting the siege, and the Warrior of Light for his valiant efforts as commander of the adventurers' contingent. But in a shocking turn of events, the celebrated hero of Eorzea would be condemned as a regicide. In the midst of the celebration, Captain Ilbert of the Crystal Braves delivered the Warrior of Light bound into the fragrant chamber, and together with Teleji Adeleji announced that, in a private meeting, the Warrior of Light had murdered, with poison, Her Royal Majesty Nanamo Ulnamo, and that the Scions of the Seventh Dawn were complicit in his crime. The Alliance leaders were understandably skeptical of these claims. Nevertheless, they were powerless to intervene in the domestic affairs of another nation, and had no choice but to defer to the judgment of local authorities. However, Rauban Alden, commander of the Immortal Flames and loyal advisor to the Sultana, was bound by no such restrictions. Driven into an uncontrollable rage by Teleji Adeleji's unconcealed glee at ridding himself of the Sultana once and for all, the Bull of Alamigo declared that the merchant was the culprit, executing him then and there for the deed. Lost to fury, Rauban then advanced on Lolorito, only to be taken unawares by Captain Ilbert, who severed his arm with a single practiced stroke, and in doing so revealed his true colors as an agent of the Monetarist. The fragrant chamber erupted into chaos as guests fled, leaving the Scions alone with their wounded ally and surrounded by their enemies. Yet when all seemed lost, the Flame General rose to his feet once more, and in the ensuing struggle succeeded in freeing the Warrior of Light from his bonds. As he and Ilbert eyed each other from across the room, Rauban bade the Scions escape, to clear their names and see justice done, before preparing to cross swords with the man he once called brother. Thus were the Scions of the Seventh Dawn scattered, and forced to flee Ul'dah in infamy, their fates unknown even to one another. As the banquet was held in the Fragrant Chamber, a hall in which the Syndicate and the Crown met regularly to discuss matters of state, attendance was limited to a select few. Owing to this, the dramatic events of that day could be kept secret, though rumors regarding the Sultana's poor health abounded. And it does look like that leads directly into Heavensward. So that is where we'll stop for now. I think we've got a good enough set of information out today, and it feels only proper to start Heavensward with its own video. So, as always, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next week. And for those interested in watching what came before this, last week's video will be up on Monday, and this week's video, the current one, will be up for Patreon subscribers as well on Monday, though for everyone else, it'll be next Monday. That might be changing soon, but we'll see. For now, have a wonderful rest of your weekend and/or day. I'll see you soon.